I've been here for a little bit over a year, as Paul has mentioned, and I've really enjoyed it. It's been interesting for me to understand what's unique to our business here in Australia versus my past experience being involved in not just the U.S. but South America and the Black Sea. And as you would expect, there are some things that are unique to Australia, and they really make good sense. And some of the things that we look at inside of GrainCorp try to take advantage of some of those very unique characteristics. But we're still doing the same thing globally. We're still competing, same customers, same capital. We still have the same issues that are coming forward. And I want to spend some time walking through with a little bit of prepared remarks on that, but very much looking forward to comments and questions that can come up. I really do appreciate being invited here and being here today. I do. This is my first Farm Writers Lunch, and I've definitely know a lot of the members that are here today, and I do know this is an important part for us. It's really good that as an industry, agriculture, agribusiness, that we're making sure that we're getting not just our word out, but we're also making sure that all the facts that are very important for us to make sure that good decisions are being made both on a governmental level, but also on investment levels at a private and public base. So I think that's great. So I'm just going to just start in here real quick. I do have some slides that I do want to walk through and just talk about things, and really two components. One is, what do we really see going on that's really impacting us on a global base, and again, just some areas that GrainCorp is responding to them. And so nothing I'm going to go through is going to be earth-shaking. It's just kind of more a reminder of what the drivers are out here. And as you look through the different areas, and if I work on the left side here, obviously food security, access to supply is very important. We've got that population growth going. But I will also tell you is as important in what we see with the growth in consumption, we're also seeing a changing profile in terms of what our customers are looking for. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're watching economies grow in places that are major importers of food. And so they're going through a process of actually looking at the quality of their food and also getting more customized in terms of what they really want. We're also watching competition trying to respond to that. So there's been a lot of consolidation that has gone on, and quite honestly, we think there's a way for that to continue to keep running. Part of it, again, is response to the customer, but it's also response to that constant push of trying to drive efficiencies into a system in a lot of different areas. And I'll also tell you, I think the other push is, quite honestly, is kind of this sustained deflationary downdraft that we're experiencing in commodities, and not just in the hard side, but definitely on the soft side as well. And so that just has an impact in terms of what margins are. It has an impact also in terms of where our trade flows are going. So when I start looking at this, there's just a number of kind of themes that come out in this. Again, the consolidation aspect, not just in businesses, we're also seeing it in supply chains. We're also seeing that there's further investment driving in supply chains. And then the other component we're seeing is that response then to the customer and trying to find ways to stay relevant to our customers. And it's not, again, just about pricing. It's about the ability to drive quality, customization, and also the other component is sustainability, and that's really starting to become a bigger deal with us inside of the customer base that we're looking at. So I'm going to just drive through these themes here a little bit. So first of all, when I look at diversification and consolidation that's going on, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because you see a lot of things happening, but it is literally driving into all areas of agribusiness. You've seen a lot of things happen, creating big food companies in terms of Nestle's and Mars, but now the latest that's certainly near and dear to us and affecting us as we look at it is the latest announcement of AB InBev and trying to have a $106 billion merger with SAB Miller. It's pretty interesting to me that you can have one company who's going to have 30% of the beer production globally. 70% of the beer production inside of the U.S. alone. So what does that do in terms of driving behavior? As a lot of us being suppliers or processors, what's the right response for us? How are we adjusting ourselves as we go forward? I know for us as GrainCorp, one of the answers for us is looking at keeping ourselves diversified. It gives us a greater range of customers that we can work with, tend to develop some more solutions, not just from a supply chain aspect, but also an innovation aspect. But also for us, and this becomes very much a part of Australia, is volatility in crop production really warrants us to keep looking at ways that we can diversify ourselves so our cash flow becomes a lot more stable. So if I look at areas that we have done over the past 5 years, even before I came here, and again, if you look at the left side of the chart, you can see just how absolutely dependent we were on earnings coming out of the traditional and the core side of GrainCorp, which would be just the handling of the grain and getting it to the marketplace. And this is still a very good business and still a high demand area for Australia. But again, when I go back and you look at how dependent we were on earnings coming on that side, I wouldn't say we live and died, but we lived and hurt by what was going on with the crop production. And again, the last couple of years has been subpar situations in crop production, and this year not getting the rain we would have liked to see in September may have an issue in terms of some of the production of the crops, depending upon which state you're looking at. But nevertheless, it keeps adding some of that variability in. So our goal really was to drive this thing where we got diversified, and that's why the investments in malt were made. That's why the investments on the oils, edible oil side has been made. And our strategy really is to drive ourselves. We're basically a one-third type of cash flow coming. So again, the grain handling business that we have inside of Australia is still phenomenally important to us. It's still core to us, but we like the idea of it being just about a third of our cash flows, and so that's what we're really working our ways through. So let's talk about supply chain investment a little bit, and I've talked to a number of occasions and gone through that, so you've got a pretty good idea, I think, what GrainCorp is working on. But supply chain investment we see going on around the globe is really having a huge impact for us, and you can see the drivers on the side that I've been talking about all along. But if I go into this, if I look at Australia as first example, the investments that have been going on, particularly in Eastern Australia, has just dramatically changed the competitive landscape, and it's changed the capacity and also how utilization is going on. So we are now in a situation there where there are now 5 competitor bulk ports, all competing with our network and all competing for Eastern Australian grains. And collectively, these ports actually can handle the total annual production that's inside of Australia. So we definitely are dealing with a capacity issue and how it's being utilized. And on top of that, I certainly don't have any of the points on here, but there's roughly 50 container sites out here that are also loading, that at times are handling up to 2.5 million tons of exports. So it's become a sizable business into itself, shipping into different markets, and part of what they do is really hitting kind of more customized buyers, or maybe smaller buyers, where the total end-to-end supply chain does matter. And so the whole container business actually works when you look at it end-to-end on a costing base. And upcountry, we're seeing more sites going in as well. So I would give it one of those good news, bad news. The bad news kind of more for GrainCorp is we're having more competition and capacity in the market, but the good news is it is forcing efficiencies to be made inside the supply chain. We are taking costs out of it, and I'll just tell you that's important for us if Australia is going to stay competitive in the marketplace. So here's just a quick picture of some of the stuff we're doing. And again, we've made the announcements out here before. We're busy investing $200 million into what we call Project Regeneration. We're going through a 3-year process, and we started this year our first tranche, $65 million. We're working on 13 sites. Paul, you mentioned one up in Colleen we just got opened. It was actually one of the first new sites that GrainCorp has built. In fact, I was asking Angus and some of the other guys if they could tell me the last time we built a new site, and everybody kind of looked at each other and couldn't remember. It's been so long ago. So the point to make is, even though we do have a lot of capacity, it's got to be competitive capacity, and there is a real reason for us to make those investments and really improve what we're doing out here. I think the other point that I'd like to make is, even though we're looking at investing $200 million, we absolutely have to have a partnership with the governments, particularly on a lot of the owned rail that they have. And so we've made some really good headway with New South Wales, and just really pleased, and I give a lot of credit to Minister Duncan Gay and some other people in the government coming forward, and we've gotten $21 million in some site improvements, and some of those now have been completed, and we actually really look forward just to seeing what the Fixing Country Rail Initiative can bring forward and really improve what we have for rail infrastructure. Our whole goal is really trying to move 1 million tons back on the rail and off the roads, and if we can do that and we get that partnership going with the government, we think we can take $5 to $7 a ton out of that supply chain cost. So that's where that investment really does matter. Pretty pleased too. We're getting really some nice positive responses coming out of the Victoria government as well. So we think we can make some headway on this and really work hard trying to keep Australia competitive. The other place that we've been working on it as well, and Paul, you mentioned too, we've made some investments here on the processing side. This is about supply chain as well, so it's not so much about adding a lot of new processing capacity, crushing canola. It's really about taking cost structure out. So what we have done is we've got 2 things going on, one in West Footscray, the other one in Numurkah. One is about expanding our crush capacity, refining, and the other one is about our food packaging. It actually puts us in a better place to where one is, where is the canola grown, where is a lot of the meal being consumed by the dairy industry, and where is a lot of the food business, and it really is eliminating a 1,500 kilometer circular loop that we've had to do in the past, and so it'll take a lot of the costs out of it. I'll just tell you the benefits for that is it's allowing us to be more competitive with Australian canola and Australian facilities with imported oil and meal coming into the marketplace, and we consider that to be a big benefit. We think it's also helping us create some export markets for us that we can effectively compete in with our competition from other countries. So let's take a little bit of time here and talk about this fight for customer relevance, because this goes to me really to the heart of what is important for us inside of Australia when we look at agribusiness. And we're seeing a lot of things happen. I mentioned some of those things a little bit earlier, but our international customer really is changing. When I think back a decade or 2 ago in my career, it was all about price. It was all about trying to get calories to different areas around the world. And this customer segmentation that is going on creates complexity for us in terms of handling supply chains. But if you've got good, efficient supply chains, and if you have good quality to start with, and you have ways to segregate and identity preserve, then you can turn that into an advantage. And this is one area where Australia really does have an advantage over some of the other countries like Brazil or Ukraine or Russia. We can effectively compete by product differentiation, by setting up our customers to really understanding what they want and be able to customize it. So we're spending a lot of time working on this. One is processing-wise, but also just in our supply chains as well. And one of the big things that comes through on this is having the capabilities to be able to trace your product. And traceability is really becoming one of those driving forces we're seeing out in the marketplace. And it's happening worldwide. So I'll give you one example. I talked about Budweiser a little while ago. Of course, it's one of the largest beer brands we have out here. They've introduced on their website what they call Track My Bud. And what you really can do is you can go in and you can input on their website, and they've got this born on date that they talk about in freshness. So you can take that born on date and you can put it into their website, and you can receive information back on location where it was brewed, who brewed it, where the ingredients came from, and actually it'll show you how it got to you, so you can track the supply chain as well. And it's really getting traction. They're getting a lot of hits on it. Another example is a site that's called redtractor.co.uk.